Okay, thank you very much. I apologize for this inconvenience and welcome to our Dia de Muertos. Although I'm looking like the muerto here, but I appreciate your patience. Bienvenidos, welcome to our Silicon Slopes Dia de Muertos celebration. How's that for leadership? Hey, thank you very much for being here. I want to thank especially Ancestry, who has lent us Jorge Garcia Mesa, an expert, and who is going to be presenting about family history and the advancements that Ancestry has done on them. Special thanks to our sponsor of the event, San Diablo Artisan Churros. I mean, what's better than a Dia de los Muertos, a Dia de los Muertos with churros? Okay, so we know that Dia de los Muertos was a couple of days ago. However, the CEO of San Diablo Artisan Churros, Scott Craig Porter, spontaneously say, you know, you guys deserve the opportunity to have churros to celebrate. So at the end of the event, we're gonna see how we can obtain a special offer. Well, actually, a gift and a special offer from San Diablo. How's that? And we're gonna share it with you after the event as well through email. Okay, so Feliz Dia de los Muertos, Happy Day of the Day, or Buen Dia de los Muertos. Now, some of you, or most of you, are Latinos, and some of you are not, and that's okay. Nobody's perfect. I'm sorry. No, only kidding. No, but the Day of Dead, Dia de Muertos is a very cultural tradition in the Hispanic, Ibero-American, Latinx, Latino culture, however you want to call it. And it has to do with very deep things. And let's delve a little bit about that before we lend the microphone to Jorge. So one thing that I want to know, that despite how beautiful the movie Coco was or is, Dia de los Muertos is not exclusively to Mexico, you know? In fact, it has taken different forms in different countries. Obviously, so the Spaniards arrived to this side of the world and they shared or imposed the Roman Catholic religion. And the indigenous culture, in some areas, what the indigenous did was kind of like a fusion of both the Roman Catholic tradition with the local indigenous tradition. And the third bullet is about astronomy. It has nothing to do with our event, but let me tell you something that has to do with something cosmic. So in many cultures in Latin America, the dead were, and it's not only in Latin America, by the way, the dead were paraded, or not only not left buried in the ground, but actually those who were of prominence sometimes were extracted from a tomb and paraded around. When the Catholics saw this, they were appalled and saw that this was very ingrained in the culture. So in places like Peru and the Inca used to do that. So what you see is that they kind of molded that tradition into the saints. So in many of the Latin American cultures, they call the Day of the Dead actually Day of All Saints, el Día de Todos los Santos. You know, in Mexico, the tradition of Day of the Dead has a lot to do with the Mexica or the Aztec tradition, and how it translates today into our tradition, or the Mexican tradition, has to do a lot. It's reflected a lot in the ofrenda, in the altar, the altar, you know. And let's see some of the elements here that are symbolized. If you see a typical ofrenda, by the way, I must say, I'm Venezuelan, I'm not Mexican. So if Jorge, feel free to correct me. I'm not going to be offended, and I'm not trying to offend any culture out there from my paisanos or my Mexican people. So hey, um, it's all with love here, okay? So let's start from the bottom, and we usually have a white tablecloth and salt pork, and the color in just like in many cultures do, uh, they they symbolize purity. You know, the color of salt and white as well. Okay, from the salt we go to the sugar skulls. You know, this is obviously where we're talking about the revering the dead in the indigenous cultures. Well, it also has to do with the inner self. You know, that essence of the human being. So it has nothing to do with spooky uh, issues, although it can look spooky if you ask me, but it has something to do more of what is inside you. You know, in Western civilizations, we or religion, we call that the spirit or the soul. If, um, if we go to the other side, we have uh, water to help quench the thirst. And this is not exclusive to the Latin American traditions. If you we remember the Egyptians saw death as a as the dead as the traveler, you know, that had to go to a distant place. Therefore, um, sustenance was required to give this person. And we see that reflected in this culture as well. If we go to the right side of the screen, we have food. Also, it can mean sustenance for that departed soul, or in the Western modern tradition, on many occasions, they actually put in the ofrenda, in the altar, the favorite food of the ones who are departed. So it's a way to keep the memory alive. Um, the flowers are very, I think, are exclusive to the Central American and Mexican tradition, and it has to do with a lot with a local flower. In in English are the marigolds, and I forgot the name in the Spanish or the Castilian language, but the Xochitl, the Nahuatl uh, name of the flower is Campesuchil. Am I pronouncing it right, Jorge? I hope so.
That's as good as I would pronounce it, but that doesn't mean
Okay.
it's right.
Thank you. So yeah, I don't speak Nahuatl. So to those of you who speak Nahuatl, I'm sorry. But it is a representation of the sun. Okay, so you see how the different elements of the universe are reflected here, and it would be part of the existence of an indigenous person back in the day. You know, that's how they perceive reality. Now on the top, we see candles who are, well, in many different religions, and especially the Christian religion, it's a symbol of faith. That which we don't see, but we can feel or can have assurance that it's going to be there, which bring us to the portrait of the person, of the departed, of that the person that we miss. That, and I think it's very symbolic and very beautiful, the fact that um, the portrait is often surrounded by these candles, not only in the Mexican tradition, but in many others um, along Latin America and or the Christian world. And it's having that hope that that we'll see them again. How's that? And that's one of the things that I love about this. In Venezuela, uh, we don't have such deep connection. We're more westernized, if you will, for better or for worse. So, but we usually cemeteries fill up those days, and not only Venezuela, most Latin American countries, to give an offering of flowers to the departed as well. Well, I would like to close saying that, let's say, sharing this saying from a gravestone in Ireland, death leaves a heartache no one can heal. Love leaves a memory no one can steal. Well, if I can answer what Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, is about, it's about love, people. It's about love. And that's what I'd like to transmit to you. Now, I would like to transition into my personal experience um, with this day and with my family. This is my mom. She passed away in 2011 after a grueling and long battle with cancer. Oh, I love her. And she was such a kind soul. She taught me the value of never giving up. And she taught me that even when she was dying. This is her father, Edesio. My mom's name was Katy, by the way. This is my grandpa, my abuelo, Edesio. I never met him. He died before I was born. But even after his death, he taught me the importance of keeping your word. Um, According to my relatives, they say, actually friends of the family, they say that my grandpa owed a small quantity of money to a debtor, and he was far away actually, and he was on his way to pay that person, because his word was worth it. He valued his word a lot, and that's something I want to keep in my life. This is his mom and his cousin, mi abuela, bisabuela Socorro, so great grandma Socorro. I was able to meet her before she died. The moment she saw me, she said, "Oh, this looks like my other son, Ehove." Uh, don't judge that I am Ehove. I hate it, but the fact that she made a connection, it made me feel that, okay, there are more of us over there. I never met Ehove, by the way. I think he's still alive. Now, this is my abuelo Crispin, my grandpa. He was born in St. Crispin's Day, and hence his name. And he was a taxi driver in Venezuela. He was my mom's um, stepfather. Now, my grandpa Crispin is the grandpa that I grew up with. The only grandfather I really met, although I met my paternal grandfather for a little bit. He was a tough man, and he was a taxi driver in Caracas, Venezuela. That says a lot, man. They tried to rob him a couple of times, and I say tried because I know at least in one or two occasions, the robber was in the back seat, and he would grab the guy's hand with the gun and then slam the car into a wall. And I have this image of the robber leaving the car as Wile E. Coyote, like, what happened? Yeah, that was my grandpa Crispin, mi abuelo. I love him and I miss him so much. He only died a couple of years ago, but he taught me, although I don't think I'm gonna run into any wall anytime soon with my car, but he taught me the importance of being brave despite adverse circumstances. And I tried to adopt uh, those aspects into my life. Now, if you notice, my grandpa's color is a bit different from mine. And yet in Venezuela, we had a lot of mix among races. And my mom, and this is oral tradition in my family, my mom's family. So they were not directly related. However, my mom told me that we actually have some African slaves among us, but I can't. And the tales of a slave marrying one of a person of the family uh, have come, but we haven't figured out that person's name. Now, I haven't figured out that person's name, and we didn't know if that was true or not. But here's how Ancestry has helped me corroborate at least part of that information. Ancestry, and Jorge is going to speak a little bit more about that. They implemented the genetic technology into family history, and after I had a DNA test, here are some of my results. If I can, well, let me see if I can share them. Apparently, I won't be able to do so. So I apologize about that. But what I can tell you is that I have about 15% of my DNA is Western African, and along with that is the mix of the native indigenous people in Venezuela. Amazingly, not only had Mediterranean, people from Spain, Portugal, and Greece and Italy in my blood, but actually people from up north. Didn't know I had like Irish and even Vikings in my ancestors. So how's that? So well, it's a mix of everything, and I'm very happy that was. And all this, I found out about this through this company, Ancestry, and that's one of the reasons why I'm very grateful for Jorge Garcia Mesa to be here and tell us a little bit about his company. As soon as I stop sharing my screen, you will be able to see his presentation, and my beautiful assistant is not here at this moment.
Should just be at the bottom in the middle.
Yes, and I'm looking for it. Oh, guess what? My beautiful assistant has arrived. I'm trying to unshare. How's that for technology, Silicon Slopes? Ok. And con ustedes, el único, el inigualable Jorge García Mesa. Gracias, mi gente.
Gracias, thank you. You're gonna have to make some changes to allow me to share, because currently it's so that you're the only one who's allowed to share.
Yeah.
So I think the option is going to be, I'm in a lot of these meetings, so I'm trying to remember what it's like. So it should be either an option right beside the share screen at the bottom. Click on it and there should be an option to open up settings.
Yeah.
While you look into that, I'll just do some general discussions. So my name's Jorge Garcia, everyone. It was very generous to call me an expert by any means, but I can give a little quick background about myself. I was originally born in Mexico, specifically in Michoacan. Like many people in the United States, my family and I migrated to the United States. Specifically, we migrated to South Carolina, which is not a place where I grew up around a lot of Latin Mexican culture. But then when it was time to go to school, I moved over to the Bay Area. And then when it was time to go to industry and get a job, I ended up taking a job at Ancestry. And that very much aligns with a lot of Hispanic Latin culture, and especially Dia de los Muertos. I think similar to many cultures around the world, there's this large emphasis on family and sort of being respectful to your previous ancestries. When I think of myself and sort of the things that I've been able to live, similar to you, Gonzalo, it's a situation where people come from humble background. It's sort of, oh, and I have control now. So let's put some visuals up to when I talk. So let me bring this over. Yep. So there's me. We kind of already went over that. So I'll talk about genealogy, ancestry, and why it kind of makes sense. I think Dia de los Muertos and family ancestry and family history are very much interlocked. We are all going after sort of the same goal, which is we have some curiosity of who are these people that came before me. Like you might know your parents, you might know your grandparents, depending on your situation, but then there's a lineage that goes beyond that. Similar to you, Gonzalo, uh, you referenced that you had a mystery in your family or a question. Essentially, there was a thought that like there was probably a point where we were maybe slaves or and that we were brought over from different areas. And you mentioned how Ancestry at least helped reconfirm one of those family histories or mysteries. And I think that's a lot of what a lot of the people that end up coming to our site are curious about. There's like, maybe it's in the US and there's like this folk story about your great grandpa and how he, or great grandpa and how he went to California and did the gold rush there, but maybe you can't confirm that. That's kind of where Ancestry tries to come in. People have questions about themselves and their family, and we kind of have various tools to help support that discovery. So I'll skip a couple pages and we'll start with maybe the DNA because you said that was a product that you're more accustomed with. So the company overall, our goal is to help facilitate the discovery of your ancestral past. And in the process, we're hoping that our customers then are able to learn, have a fuller sense of who they are and kind of where they come from. So you mentioned the ethnicity breakdown. So I'll open it up. And for those who haven't used Ancestry before, kind of what it looks like. So I think this is similar to what you referenced before, where we obviously have different compositions, everyone will. For me, it's very much indigenous American and then Spanish with small little percentages throughout. So I think similar to you probably, I wasn't very surprised by what the percentages were, but I think on a personal level, something that was interesting. Let me do something because I noticed I am very dark and the lighting in my room isn't great. Okay, that should be slightly better. So I think one of the things that a lot of our customers and the people that we end up interacting with is there was nothing mysterious about the results that I got back. But at least being Mexican compared to United States, where there's more of a, I think a tribal association where like you're Navajo, you're Cherokee or something like that. That's nothing I never grew up with. But it was pretty, I was pretty aware just by sort of looking at my skin color that there was going to be that fact that I was more so than not native to the Americas. So at least to me, that was a reassuring type of discovery. So that's one of kind of the products that we help facilitate. Like, what parts around the world are you from at a very, very high level? So we also have this concept of communities. So these are cool. I think at the beginning of this of my discussion, I referenced how I was from Michoacan. So what's cool is we combine our DNA as well as, let me go here. We combine our DNA and also what I'll reference in a little bit, which is genealogical records to help understand over time how have people migrated around the world. So for example, if we look in Mexico, where I'm from and my family's from, not only do they guess that I'm from Mexico, but they assume that I'm from central and southern Mexico. Not only that, but they also assume that I have a family history within this area, which if you look a little bit down here, references Michoacan, which is honestly, even though I work there, still honestly fascinating. The fact that you spit in this little tube and via our different assets and all together, we're able to show and pinpoint to the best of our current ability where you and your family might come from. Something that is then interesting about the notion of the communities is not for you specifically, but in general, we can kind of see how people from where I come from have kind of migrated over time. Now on the side, you kind of have a little bit of story about how life was at that time. And you kind of see people were constantly moving out of that area, that's Guanajuato and Michoacan. And then when we get into the 1900s, you start seeing some migration patterns to, nope, go here. Some migration patterns to Southern Cal. Where is it? So that's another of our features that we kind of use to help people discover more about themselves. I got some communities in Mexico, but someone who's maybe more European based, they might get communities in Europe. Or if you have a lineage that has been around in the US for a couple of centuries, you might get some migration patterns in the United States. So Gonzalo and also anyone on the call, if you have any questions, or please stop me along the way. Otherwise,
Sure.
I'm going to continue talking.
We have one question
Mm-hmm.
from Luis, mi pana Luis. How good is the database for people that's looking after for their genealogy in South America?
Sure. So no need in making a presentation. Let's just go there directly. So for those people who might not know Ancestry that well, we have two main product offerings. There was the DNA component, which we referenced, but we also have this thing about genealogical documentation. So it's like census, birth certificate, death certificate. It's generally government-related work or church-related documentation that helps you via paper document where you're coming from. And the question was, how good is the South American content? Well, I don't know off the top of my head, but we can go take a look. So click here. No. Wait, where did the hyperlink go? Sad. Oh, I only made it on one of the photos. That was dumb. Okay, so this is a place on our site called the card catalog. It's in reference to libraries. So if we remember in the libraries, there would be this notion of a catalog and sort of where the documents might exist. So for context, right now we have what we call 32,000 collections. So these are different document entities. Imagine the 1930 census, or maybe what else do we have in here? Things like memorial books in the World War II. So the question was South America. So if we go down here and we take a look at the South American content, we click on it, and we have roughly 68 documents for South America. I don't know where the person's from, but then there's specific documents then for different countries. I know there's Q&A. Where did my Q&A go? There we go. Okay, so hopefully this answered the question that sort of you can go look here. Looking at the card catalog does not require a subscription. So if you're interested more, all you have to do is sign up for a registered account, which means you don't have to pay. You just, you're able to look at our sites before looking at actual images. So hopefully that facilitated the question. If not, let me know. So I think the next question was, is Ancestry looking to expand the knowledge on Native American references to offer a better service for Latinos? Would it be okay if I maybe asked the person who submitted that question to maybe expand on that a little bit? Like, what specifically were you wondering? Was that more on the DNA side or more on the document side? Genetic data. Okay, sure. So I'll explain at a high level how our DNA kind of product works. Yeah, how can I move this? I'm trying to see. Okay, and come back. So at a high level, the way our DNA data works, and by no means am I an expert in this, we definitely have a lot of experts, it just happens to be me, is you spin in a tube, and then we get your DNA, a version of extracting your DNA. Within the DNA, at a high level, there's this notion of markers. So like there's going to be a combination of signals within your DNA that are going to be different from other people. And what we kind of do is then we try and gather samples from around the world, right? The idea being that someone who stayed in Russia their whole life like for centuries and so forth, would have slightly different indicators than would somebody who spent their whole time in like Mexico, right? So in BIA using how a reference panel of people that have been in Russia there for a while and how they're different from the Mexico side, you use statistics to see how confident am I that the person is from this region or that other region. So then the way that I would explain if we are going to get better in the genetic data standpoint is we only get as good as the number of people who have a native background, like ancestry, or like who have ancestors who live in that area, because then we have more data. The more data that we have, the more confident we can become in our estimates. So it's a tricky question where we're working always to get better at all these calculations, but it's really more on how much of our customers are they willing to contribute, and do our customers do they come from areas that we consider to be Native American? Hopefully that helped answer the question.
Jorge, can you expand on the way you obtain information on genetic information, please?
Can I expand on maybe how it works?
Let's see. I assume that you need to compare the data you receive from customers to certain databases. Those databases are working right now with indigenous populations, or are they pretty much currently in labs that have established themselves general databases in the Western world, if you will?
I see. I'll try and answer both the one you asked and then the one that was answered. So I will give the disclaimer that my expertise on Ancestry lies on the document side, but I'll answer it to the best of my knowledge that I'm allowed to. So the way that it generally works is you have groups that we consider reference panels. So they're essentially a set of families or villages that just haven't migrated around. Sometimes they have already conducted the DNA sampling themselves. Sometimes we go look for those groups and we ask them, do you want to contribute to our project of like having a better understanding of where people come from? And then we conduct a test for them, generally free. So that's that part of the question. And then in reference to the other question was whether we're going to do it by reaching out to these various groups or not, or whether we're only going to do it through consumer data. It's a combination of both. Sometimes we do consumer data, and sometimes we go to specific reference panels. I can't specifically speak, probably because I can't remember, and I probably can't say anyway, what specific like groups we're reaching out to, because we're not naturally getting them via consumer data. But we generally are trying to reach out to groups that aren't well represented in our consumer data already.
Thank you, Jorge. Here, Luis asked on a more personal note, the knowledge that you obtain personally through understanding the heritage and culture hasn't made you feel any different about yourself or your sense of self?
Yeah, I think so. And maybe I'll sometimes go a little bit back to some of the presentation. So one of the things we kind of do, and I don't know the expertise of people on the call and kind of their research in family history or so forth. When I joined, I was by no means an expert, but if anything, I am an expert, at least in the data of Ancestry. And it is, I think it has given me a greater sense of who I am. Like I always knew that my family came from a pretty humble background. And I also kind of knew that they didn't migrate, or at least a couple of generations back, they really didn't migrate from this specific area in Michoacan. So in the time that I've been doing some research on some of my lineage, it's kind of humbling, honestly. And it reminds me of the opportunities that have been bestowed upon me as to the fact that more so my parents than I, they were willing to come to a new country, leave everything behind for the simple prospect that their child could potentially have a slightly better life, slightly better education. And I think I've gotten a greater understanding of that via working in Ancestry and via doing my own family history research. I hope that answers the question.
I think so. Oh yes, Lee said that it actually answers. Thank you.
No.
Let's see. Let's see in the general chat. We might. Okay. Let me, in the meantime, thank Sianya for letting me know how to pronounce Cempasúchil. Okay. Thank you, Zianya, la señorita Bejarano. Thank you. Okay, please, Jorge, you were delving more into your own experience with family history or with genealogy itself, and we're going to go into pedigrees or family trees, if you will.
Right before we go, I don't want to try and ignore people. There was also a person who asked if two siblings take the test, would they get the exact same results? The answer is no. They would be slightly different. Instead of me trying to answer it, to that person who asked it, I'll type you an answer and I'll send you a link to people who are a lot more knowledgeable as to why. So just letting you know, I'm not ignoring you. Okay, I'll go back. So maybe I'll go back to this. So sort of what I was referencing, where along with doing our DNA testing and some of our DNA products there, we also have what we consider more traditional genealogy type functionality. What some of that includes is what you referenced, which is a pedigree. It's nothing special about it. We kind of are able to structure who you are and your family members and kind of who they are. It's just a way to organize stuff. But I think the thing that's the most exciting about Ancestry in general is the fact that we just have so much content, and that as far as a independent company is concerned, we have the most content in the world. So if you're looking for something, starting with us is generally the right spot to start. So I think I showed this once, but I'll just show it again. And just the fact that what we have in context, this is more of a Dia de los Muertos focus. Out of the Latin American countries or communities, the two spaces that were the most, I think, well invested into are Mexico, where we have 160 so pieces of collection. And while I scroll, you can kind of see a quick list. A lot of them deal with birth and so forth. The reasoning, we're pretty strong in Mexico is there's a strong emphasis by the Catholic Church to organize and like document marriages, births, and so forth. So generally, there's a lot of information there. Another spot that Ancestry is pretty good if people on the call happen to come from that background is, well, I guess now that I think about it, is it going to be separate or are you going to put it in Puerto Rico? Yeah, okay. Puerto Rico is, as you can tell, I've lost some of my natural Spanish enunciation. Puerto Rico is also a place that we're pretty strong as far as content is concerned. And I consider strong in the fact that you would be able to go back a couple family generations, like 3 or 4. If you get lucky, obviously. Not everyone's in all this documentation, but 3 or 4 generations back or so forth.
Thank you, Jorge. We have Deb Bell is making the comment about, a sibling having the same DNA. Says my granddaughters are fraternal twins, and they have taken the DNA test, and their DNA is not the same. So there you go. If fraternal twins. I'm thinking in Spanish. Sorry. Uh, um, don't have the DNA. Probably, the rest of the siblings out there, do not share that necessarily. Now, I'm curious. Well, building on the last question, and
Mhm.
given the fact that I'm Venezuelan, and I know that there's a couple of people who are married to Colombians among the attendants. Can you show us a little bit how the amount, the number of I don't know, remember how you call them, like the
Content?
records? Yeah, the record collections in both Venezuela and Colombia, please.
Sure. I'll do two ways because sometimes it can be a little bit tricky.
Even better.
So you can look at it from the side of how many pieces of documents do we have. I accidentally clicked the US exit. So let's pick South America. Venezuela, we're pretty short, you can tell. So we have mainly
I
three.
imagine that.
Yeah. We are still, honestly, a lot of our content is still heavy European. The rationale is that's kind of where the company initially came from and like what our population looked like. But I can say that there is a clear attentiveness towards the Latin American populace, just simply because we know, and most people can check, that our representation in this country continues to go up. And not just Ancestry, but pretty much really honestly, most consumer companies are going to have to figure out what is the right way to interact with us and give functionality and services to facilitate that. So you said Venezuela. What was the other one?
Colombia.
Colombia? Colombia's.
Before you jump to Colombia, I must congratulate Ancestry. With Venezuela is going through a tough dictatorship, and the fact that they are still able to gather this information is just remarkable. If I want to, give you guys a compliment, so please go on.
Yeah. So on the Colombia side, we have 7, right? So, but I think what I do want to show, just to make it, so let's go with a common name. Let's go with Pin. We'll do yours. So a way that we can do things is, so for those who don't know what they're seeing, what I kind of did was I did a search. So like any other search, right? Like on e-commerce, like
okay, Amazon. I'm gonna get like a little kid. Do me. So can we look for my father's father? His name was Cosme de Jesus Peña.
Well, I don't know if we're gonna be successful, but we can try. How do you spell his first name?
C-O-S, Charlie, Oscar, Sierra.
C-O-S.
E.
Me.
And then de Jesus.
De Jesus, that'll probably be his first name.
Yeah.
And what was his last name?
That's it.
Peña. I think someone said, can we do it again, but slower? Okay,
ooh,
sure.
Okay, no worry.
Okay. I'll copy it. So this isn't the recommended way to do searches. I'll show you the recommended way in a bit. So you try and put in as much information as you know about them. Like obviously, like we have a lot of records, right? We have billions. Like imagine if you were at the library and someone told you, oh, his last name is Pena. Can you go find the document for me? It's like, what else do you know about him? What am I supposed to do? Do you happen to know roughly when this person was born? Best guess. It could be off by a decade.
Let's see, 1906. But I know where exactly the name of the city where he was born. How's that?
How confident are you with what year he was born? Like, what type of range?
Let's put the 10. Let's do 10 for blood.
No worry. Yes, you can. I don't know how to type it in. Let me see. I think it's this. Oh yeah. Yeah. So diacritics. I can specifically tell you that yes, we search for diacritics because I own this product. it won't matter. We look for both diacritic piña with an ñ and without the diacritic above it. That was a question, by the way, in our chat. Then you said you knew rough where he might have been lived. Is this his birth or just lived at some point?
Birth.
Okay. Roughly where was he born?
So, so I'm gonna give you the state. Is
okay, that's fine.
Táchira.
Can you spell it for me?
Tango Alpha Charlie Hotel. No. Táchira. T-A. C. Not with a BL.
Okay, let's start over. Top one is T-A.
C-H. I-R-A. There you go. The second.
Okay. And we know for sure it's this place.
Yes.
That's the state where he's born.
Yes.
Okay. The only thing that sometimes is tricky about genealogy, and I don't know about Venezuela, is like someone can be born somewhere, but they might have been registered somewhere else. But let's just try this for now.
Yeah, I think he was registered there. And I threw you a curveball because, it's Venezuela, what we're talking about here. So let's see.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be much, but let's go see what we got. Okay, let's just search. Yep, and sadly, we got nothing.
Okay, it was worth a try.
Yeah, sorry, that sometimes happens, and it's a interesting game of what you do afterwards. So let me show you. Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so let me show you the way we recommend people search. The way we recommend people search is you build out a tree, and then you pick the person that you're interested in. For example, let's do Antonio Villafuerte, who is my great-grandpa. And what you can do here, I found my grandpa marriage certified, but I can't see it. I don't know about what you mean by that, Luis. If you're welcome to give me more information, I'll try and respond. So you click the search option. Go. Okay, I'll look at that in a bit. And the way that it works is it takes all the information that you put in your tree and it searches for you. So it's easier that way because remember, one of the positives is the more data you have, like imagine a librarian, right? The more you give information you give the librarian about the book you want to have, the more likely they're able to find it. That doesn't mean we'll have it, but they're more likely to know what you're looking for. So, and then kind of what I wanted to show is, let's just do a new search.
After that, we have a couple of questions, one from a good friend, Graciela Tiscareño Sato, and the other one from Victor, and they are related with the documents themselves.
Okay, let's just ignore this. I'd rather answer people's questions. What are the questions?
So we were mentioning Catholic Church. My interest is in genealogy records. Here's why. To confirm a fascinating story when covered, my father's last name is from Tiscar region of Spain, hence Tiscareño. 4 years ago, I found a University of California, Irvine professor's research about my name that traced back to a captain in the Spanish Navy who sailed to Mexico in the first decade of the 1500s. Wow. He ended up marrying one of Montezuma's granddaughters. Wow. The professor referenced a church record of this marriage and their descendants. Truly the mestizo race, quote unquote, moment from where all the Tiscareños descended. I want to know more and to see that 500-year-old church record. How far back do genealogy records go in your database?
Sure.
And then Victor asked what it would look like.
Yeah, sure. Let's go take a look. And then I'll answer another Q&A question. That's a different one. So we have records that go roughly to the 1600s. So if you're saying a record all the way in the 1500s, we're unlikely to have it. So let's actually look what's in the 1600s. Oh, we actually do have some in the 1500s. So as you can tell, they're very much like European based. Oh, you can take a look over here. So yeah, most of them are in Europe, some North American. Oh, what's in the North America? That's interesting. Yeah, so you kind of have like, they're odd. Like you don't know what you're gonna find in here. You have some about the cemetery in Maine, people being buried all the way to 1700. Virginia, that's also there. But back to the original question was, how far back do we go back? I think as far as credible records, it's the 1600s, maybe the 1500s. But we have to remember it gets really tricky, right? Because what you're trying to do is when you do this research is you want to be confident that if you start here, how confident am I related to this person? Because if you mess up, you might end up going down this like line of research that goes like, yeah, I'm related to this person. But if there was ever a hole in your research, you made interesting research, it might not be your family though. So I think the answer to the question was within the 1500s, 1600s. And what was the other question?
The other question was what the records would look like. So does Ancestry have like uh, pictures of the documents themselves where the information was extracted from?
It depends. So the way we do things is not me, but like some of our content specialists, they travel the world and they look to make partnerships with different um, uh, entities. Generally, the idea being that they have a lot of documents, but they might not have the technology to digitize a record. And you would want to digitize the record because if it's a piece of paper, there's a good chance you're going to lose it, or it's going to the ink is going to fall off, or get dull over time. So kind of what we're doing is, sure, we want to digitize content for our customers, but we also want to digitize content for these various places so they don't lose that content. So for example, here's an example. Here's a group in Wales that we worked with to help digitize our content, and now we show it on our site. As to the question of an image, yeah, so here's one. Okay, I don't know what I'm looking at. Okay, burials, marriages, and baptisms in Wales, 1500. This is a person, George. You click on the image, and sometimes here it is. Here's George. And it's a little tricky sometimes because imagine, right? We're getting content all over the world, and the documents are organized in different ways. People's handwriting is in different ways. But the answer is, to a lot of these documents, we have the actual images that we help digitize and show to people. One of the collections that I think generally people are really interested in is our yearbooks. So we have a lot of yearbooks from around the United States. And what a lot of people like looking into is if they have family members who have been around for a while, maybe like, what did your great grandpa look like when they were elementary school or middle school? That doesn't mean we'll have it, but we have a lot of them. So it gives you a chance.
Okay. So didn't realize that we are past time. The so I think I can get you in contact with Luis, who wanted to see how wanted to access the document itself. Now I'm going to ask you one question, and if you can't answer it, it's okay. But do you know of other organizations that might have databases that predate the 1600s, or
Yeah,
or more than what Ancestry do have at the moment? And thank you, Deb, and thank you, Luis.
yeah. I would be surprised that there's too many people that are better than us because we've invested a lot into it. That doesn't mean there aren't. So there's obviously the big players like Family Search and MyHeritage. Those are generally our
So are those
Competitor,
familysearch.org or .com?
I don't remember which one it actually is.
Okay, so one is My Heritage, and the other one is Family Search. Okay.
Yeah, so those are generally big players. One of them is a nonprofit. One is another private company like we are. They might have the content, and in reality, my suggestion is like you might have to look at all of them because some of us have different pieces of information. And then the question is, if there is information that predates 1500, it might exist somewhere. It just might not be digitized. Like there's libraries all over the world. Then it gets tricky, right? Because it's easy to try and look for stuff in front of your computer and you can just do it from wherever. But if you become really, really committed, there's also the option of potentially doing some travel to various towns and so forth.
Thank you, Jorge. Well, I really want to thank you and for your time and for so graciously have come. I think, well, if they wanted to get more information about Ancestry, is there an about page or just or us as Hispanics or the Spanish-speaking people or even the Portuguese people that might be out there that they can go to?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is just go to Ancestry. You don't need a subscription to do some of the stuff on there. So just make a free account, take a look. If it looks promising, maybe do a free trial. Because like I can't promise we'll have something for everyone. Like it's too hard to do that. But there's a lot of stuff in there. So take a look. It might be valuable. It isn't for everyone, but it can be.
Perfect. I guess the only question we have left here is, what about the churros? And well, so every one of the attendants, I'm gonna send an email, and our sponsor today, San Diablo Churros, they deliver nationwide in the United States, not only in Utah. And for those of you who are in Utah, you'll get an additional code to get 20% off some of their products. So thank you. So Jorge and Ancestry, once again, thank you, and thank you every single one of you for attending. We'll keep in touch, and if you have more questions, feel free to post them in our chapter, or to send me an email to our chapter. I'm gonzalo.pena@gmail.com, and to register in the Silicon Slopes Latino chapter is you just go to siliconslopes.com/Latino. Thank you all, and thank you, Jorge. Nos vemos. Un abrazo.
Bye, everyone.